I'm always ready to talk about Godzilla.
It's a great first line to open with.
What's up, everybody? Joshua
Hello.
Eby here, writer and creator of the Southtown comic. We have Will Smith here, illustrator and artist and creator of the Southtown comic series. We're doing this video because we challenged y'all to see if you could fully fund the Kickstarter campaign for issue 4 of Southtown before our early bird special was over, which was like right about 72 hours. And y'all did it. And I said that if y'all did it, then I would post a video that is either very cool or very embarrassing. And we would kind of decide on what it would be. And Will chimed in with the idea of a video that, depending on where you stand on very special interest centric rants, could either be very cool or much more likely is very embarrassing that I have this much passion for Kaiju. So I'm going to tell y'all, anybody who's been following our stuff has seen us on some podcast interviews or stream interviews, or has spent any time talking with us, knows I am a huge Godzilla fan. And so I figured we would post basically a Joshua's backstory with Godzilla video, all for y'all as a thank you for throwing us so much support so quickly. Anyone who has not yet backed the campaign, we still have like 25 days to go. Like, the campaign has barely started. The early bird special is over, of course, but we still have a shit ton of stuff. We've already hit our first milestone for our first stretch goal, but we have more planned out, whether that's bookmarks, trading cards for some of the characters and stuff, stickers, enamel pins. There's even one where, just kind of as a fuck you to AI, Will and I try to be pretty clear on our stance with regard to generative AI. If we get 50 backers on the campaign, right now we currently have 30 something, so we're not far away from that. We will also include me drawing the first 4 pages of the comic. I am not an artist. I do not make visual art at all. If you give me a ruler, I can't give you a straight line, but it's made by a human, which is always still better than telling a computer to steal from other artists for you. So,
he's already started it, and it's amazing. So there's that. All right, and so let's get started. I'm going to act as moderator here.
Moderator for a monologue.
Pretty much. All right. So to start, what is Godzilla?
What is Godzilla? Okay, so the year is 1954. Japan, specifically Toho Studios, releases the film Gojira in Japan, Godzilla in America. Although in America, I don't think it came over until 1956. But Godzilla, figuratively, and what he represents as of that first film, is that he is, and this is kind of the easy, really obvious answer for folks who enjoy the Godzilla films. He is a metaphor for the atomic bomb. He is a direct analog for the consequence against Japan for the dropping of atomic bombs and the cataclysmic impact that it had on the nation and on the culture. And this being a movie that, even though the bombs had been dropped quite a few years before, is still very much dealing with the aftermath of that, and understandably, it has a significant impact still on the culture. As far as more literally what he represents, or like what is Godzilla, there are a couple different lores that say Godzilla is different things. Generally speaking, from Toho series lore, Godzilla was a long lost but still somehow surviving dinosaur called a Godzillasaurus on Monster Island, which is, if you've seen Destroy All Monsters or a lot of these other films where they wanted a less urban environment to tear the shit out of, they would put it on Monster Island, where most of the kaiju reside when they're not actively attacking Japan. And Godzilla was one of the denizens of this island. He was a dinosaur that's kind of basically a T-Rex, but it is a Godzillasaurus. It is its own unique species. And then when America was doing nuclear testing in the Pacific Islands, radiation mutated Godzilla into this formidable creature that came to represent the negative effects of atomic energy and nuclear weaponry. So he is a mutated dinosaur. According to the absolutely not canon 1998 film, which, if you look at it not as a Godzilla film and instead as sort of a remaster of what is it, The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms or something like that. It's some like 1940s or 1950 monster flick.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's I don't remember, but if you look at it instead as sort of a retelling of that story and not as a Godzilla film, you know, it's a dumb fun 90s movie. And if you look at it as a Godzilla film, that's not fucking Godzilla. Not at all. Godzilla, like this one, fully has Godzilla as a female that breathes fire, and Godzilla, while he is generally referred to as a male, is kind of asexually. He reproduces asexually, and he has a son, and there is, at least according to the Toho films, pretty much no explanation for how he births this child. But it is not laying a bunch of fucking eggs in Madison Square Garden. Also, he has an atomic blast. It is not a fire breath or a heat breath. It is not him breathing fire like in that movie. Also, there's no chance in hell that the U.S. military is killing Godzilla like they did in that film. The reason why Toho and the Japanese kaiju community refers to him as Zilla and not as Godzilla is because he ain't no god. But that version, Zilla, was like a fucking iguana or something. I know he was a lizard. I think he was just a straight up iguana.
Kind of looked like a cross between an iguana and like a really dumb looking alligator.
Yeah. And so that's what that one is. And then Shin Godzilla from the I want to say it's 2017 film. It's on one of the streaming platforms. I think it's on Prime. If you have a way to watch it, definitely watch it. It's an incredible movie. It's Godzilla meets like Cronenberg body horror, and it has the most harrowing. It has like the most harrowing atomic breath scene of any Godzilla film. I think the Godzilla -1 one is more impactful. The cultural and like societal impact and everything that it has is like really clearly so like and the emotional weight that it carries is so much stronger. But like this is an atomic breath, and Shin Godzilla is the first one that makes you really, really feel like the people who did survive the initial blast still like died of cancer. Like it's intense, it's disgusting in a not so much in the body horror way of some of the rest of the film, but it's like it feels caustic watching it. It's incredible. But that version is sort of represented as some sort of deep sea creature, kind of implied maybe like a fish that it used to be. But most lore lists Godzilla as being having been a Godzillasaurus that mutated. The trouble with that also is that there's a number of different timelines, even from Toho themselves, because Toho, the whole Showa series, which is this part of the fuzzy, I think the reason why they call them different series, like the Showa, the Heisei, the Millennium, and then the Reiwa, I think at least Showa and Heisei, I'm not super up on my Japanese culture and like politics stuff, but it's like dynasties or era, I don't know. It's something to do with Japanese like government and like political culture, I think is why they break them up into those eras. But the Showa series and the Heisei series are generally understood to be like a timeline. Like that is a through line. Everything that happens in 1976 with Terror of Godzilla is stuff that's been building up from 1954 with Gojira. So all of that is the same timeline where it's the Godzillasaurus. Everything with the Heisei series from Godzilla Returns in 1984, or just Godzilla, it's a lot of times they just call it just Godzilla 1984, all the way through Godzilla vs. Destroya, which is an incredible film, but you should watch all the Heisei stuff before that to get a real build up to how Godzilla ended up in that position where he is. But all of that is like a consistent timeline. And then, but the Millennium series that they introduced, every single one of those films is its own timeline, which I'm pretty sure all of them still have Godzilla as the Godzillasaurus because all of them are still meant to be like standalone sequels to the 1954 film. So it's like Godzilla vs. Megaguirus is a sequel to 1954. Godzilla, Mothra, and King Ghidorah, All Monsters Attack is a sequel to 1954. Tokyo SOS is a sequel to 1954. All of them, or at least most of them, are just, it's all like different directors or different story ideas having a go at what if this was the next one that happened after 54. Though I'm pretty sure Final Wars. I'm pretty sure Godzilla Final Wars is a sequel to just absolutely everything. That's the one where it's like, no, fuck it, like everything ends here because Toho expected to end the Godzilla story with Final Wars, which is why it goes absolutely fucking bonkers and just pulls out every single stop, and it's incredible, and you have to watch it. So yeah, the answer to that question. There was one more answer to that question, which is like after you get past Godzilla or Gojira and Godzilla raids again, you start getting more into where what Godzilla is not just a metaphor for the atomic bomb, but he also, and this kind of goes into the whole idea of like, you know, people ask the question of whether Godzilla is a good guy, Godzilla is a bad guy. And some fans, I totally understand this perspective because kind of, especially once you start getting into the Millennium series where it's like, he's one thing here, he's a different thing there. They just have different timelines and different thought processes going into them. But generally speaking, people say, oh yeah, he kind of like flipped back and forth between being a good guy or being a bad guy. And the case that I would make personally is that Godzilla never flip-flops on what he is. Godzilla is an agent for the Earth. And so the reason we see him as either a good guy or a bad guy is because we approach it from a pretty human-centric perspective. The idea of like, he's a good guy because he's helping out the humans, or no, he's a bad guy now because he's hurting the humans. Humans aren't the good guys. Godzilla does not regard humans as consistently like the protagonists of the story. Godzilla is an agent for the Earth, and when humans are the ones who are doing something that is detrimental to the Earth, Tokyo SOS, when they have relocated his bones and they are trying to use kaiju DNA and shit to further human-centric goals, he comes across as the bad guy because we're being the bad guys, and so he's against us. Or the original Godzilla, when he is an analogy for the bomb. But then when you have, you know, Ghidorah, the three-headed monster, or Godzilla versus the smog monster, or Horror of the Deep, all these stories where a third party, some cosmic entity, or pretty often aliens, whether it's the Zillions or the Simians, that they might be the ones who are threatening the planet, like they're threatening Earth. Then he comes across as a good guy because he's fighting people that humans are also fighting. So it's not that good guy, he's good or bad, it's that he represents Earth, and so he opposes whoever is starting trouble on Earth. So I think that's pretty much all the answers to what is Godzilla.
Well done. Well done. All right. Okay. How about some Godzilla allies and enemies, and where do they come from?
Yes. So, all right. So we start with Godzilla Raids Again. That was the next movie to come out after Gojira, and that was the first one where they had the idea of what if we had Godzilla fight another monster. The other monster he fights is my favorite kaiju of all time, Anguirus, my boy. Anguirus is a kaiju that his origin is never really explained in the film so much. I think even in Godzilla Raids Again, it's like, what? Another monster showed up. But it seems pretty clear that his origin doesn't, like, that he doesn't have the same nuclear origin as Godzilla. As far as I recall, I haven't watched Godzilla Raids Again in quite a while, but because of all the movies with Anguirus in them, it's the one that holds up the least, I think. But Anguirus, he's sort of this spiky, armadillo-ish creature with spikes on his back instead of just a shell, and he is Godzilla's very first adversary. But then after that film, he is his absolute most loyal ally. And Anguirus is the one who, at all times, no matter what, is his ride or die. And in fact, in Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla, the very first time we ever see Mechagodzilla, Anguirus is the one monster who kind of reveals to the world that this isn't really Godzilla, because when Mechagodzilla shows up at first, he fully looks like Godzilla, skin and everything. And Anguirus is the first one who starts attacking him. And the humans all know by this point, because this is like 20 years after Godzilla Raids Again. So like we've known Anguirus for a while, and we've gotten really accustomed to Godzilla and Anguirus' friendship. And they're like, why is Anguirus attacking his best friend? And then it comes to, you come to find out, like, actual Godzilla is there. You see the two of them in the same place, and like, what's going on? Oh, Anguirus could tell immediately that this wasn't really Godzilla. Also, Anguirus, the thing I love about Anguirus, and we're gonna go on a slight tangent because we got on my favorite boy, but the thing I love about Anguirus and the reason why he's my favorite kaiju is because Anguirus, he's not the strongest, like at all. I guess once you get into guys like Kumanga and Baragon and some of those guys, like, you are getting into creatures that are like significantly weaker than Anguirus too. But generally, of all the like heavy hitters, Anguirus is probably the bottom of the barrel in terms of power level. He doesn't have a special breath weapon. He can't fly. The big thing that he can do is kind of, in some of the later movies, he starts like in the Millennium series stuff, he starts being able to roll up and like Sonic the Hedgehog at you. But generally through the Showa series and everything, the biggest thing he could do was either bite you or he could like jump backwards at you and hit you with the spikes. And he thinks more quickly than others because he has 5 brains. He has a brain in his skull, obviously, and he has a brain in each limb, so that he can actually process information and react more quickly than other kaiju. But it's not quick enough to really stand toe to toe with like Ghidorah or Mechagodzilla or Hedorah or any of these like heavy hitters. But despite being like bottom of the barrel in terms of the heavy hitters for Godzilla, like in like the Kaijuverse, he doesn't back down from anybody. He will run a fade on absolutely anyone, and he doesn't give a shit. In my favorite kaiju film of all time, Godzilla versus Gigan, Godzilla is temporarily taken out of the fight because Ghidorah is an absolute problem, and he and Gigan take Godzilla temporarily out of the fight. Anguirus doesn't give a shit, and he straight up latches onto Ghidorah's throat, or one of his throats, and like Godzilla and Ghidorah goes to fly away, and you see Anguirus just hanging on because he's like, "Come back, you three-headed fuck, let's do this." He doesn't give a shit, and he's for sure gonna die if he goes one-on-one against Ghidorah. He wants all of that smoke, and I love him for his courage. The same way I love Ghidorah or Gigan as a villain for his absolute lack of courage. But we'll get to him later. We'll do these in order of appearance. But Anguirus. Anguirus, I just love it because he has no fear, and he will go into a fight that he knows he will lose. And I always love the little guy who doesn't flinch. Just like in I can't remember what the name of the storyline is. I love the Brave Little Toaster too. But like there's a Marvel storyline where, what's the character's name? The champion or the ultimate champion? The one who pretty much like does a one-on-one fight against anyone who will run a fade on him from Earth, and he's like, if nobody can beat me, then I'm going to destroy Earth. And the Thing is the one who stops him because he's beating the shit out of the Thing constantly. No, it's not on that power level. It's someone on like Gladiator's power level.
Okay.
But the only thing I remember from this story, and the Thing can't beat him, can't get close, but he can't get the Thing to give up, and he can't get him to stop fighting because the Thing, as far as he understands, if he loses, Earth is lost, so he refuses to give up. And finally, this ultimate champion or something, his name is something dumb like that. But finally, he's like, you know what? If you've got people like this on your planet, then maybe it's worth keeping around. But I love that kind of character. I adore that kind of character in stories. And Anguirus is the absolute like embodiment of that idea. And as far as where he comes from, he's from Monster Island. He's one of the core, like, I'm from Monster Island, like, welcome to this weird fucking place in the Pacific Ocean. The next character that we get introduced to is Ghidorah. He has 2 different movies that are back to back, which have dramatically different quality levels. You've got Ghidorah, the 3-headed monster, and that one is an awesome film. And then you've got Invasion of Astro Monster, which is very silly. Ghidorah, the 3-headed monster, he shows up to fuck up the planet, and Invasion of Astro Monster, aliens kidnap Godzilla and take him to their planet where Ghidorah is fucking them up, and we need Godzilla to fight Ghidorah and also to do a silly little dance. But Ghidorah is from Oh my God, is it Planet X? Is what it's called?
I think it's Monster X in one of them.
Oh, he's Monster Zero.
Monster Zero.
Yeah. This is gonna kill me. It's from like I know he's from where the Zillions are from, which I think is just called Planet X. And that's why they're called Zillions, because it's X-Illion. I know like when they first come at him, like he's already taken out Venus, and he comes from space. And Ghidorah, I will personally argue, is Godzilla's consistent greatest threat. I think Ghidorah has more consistently been a bigger threat than anybody else. The only other two, you can make a case for Biollante, and Biollante is crazy and powerful and amazing, but I don't personally put Biollante up there with Destroyer and Mechagodzilla. Mechagodzilla has always been a problem, but Godzilla has pretty consistently won like 1v1 Mechagodzilla. Destroyer did kill Godzilla, but it's kind of how much of that is that Destroyer killed Godzilla and how much of it was that over the course of 40 years, Godzilla's body was decaying and reaching nuclear meltdown. Because that is ultimately what kind of killed him. And Destroyer dramatically accelerated that process through the damage he was doing, but still, Godzilla was kind of on his way out at that point anyway. But Ghidorah, in almost every single fight, Godzilla has always had to have help against Ghidorah. The only Godzilla vs. Gigan was a 2v2, so it's not quite he needed to team up against Ghidorah. It was him and Anguirus versus Ghidorah and Gigan. And then in Mothra, in Godzilla, Mothra, and King Ghidorah All Monsters Attack, that is the one where you see Ghidorah as his weakest. That's a Millennium Era thing where they've kind of made it that Ghidorah is now they've changed his canon and he is one of the Guardians of Earth along with Mothra and Baragon, and the three of them have to team up against Godzilla. And then in Final Wars, Godzilla just throws hands at absolutely everybody and smokes everyone. But in almost every other instance, Godzilla has needed help to defeat Ghidorah. So I think Ghidorah is his strongest enemy. He's got his gravity beams. He's just incredibly powerful. He flies. And he's got all kinds of stuff. Plus, he's incredibly intelligent, very clever and cunning as a warrior. Then you get King Kong versus Godzilla, which a great movie, but also if you think about it for more than 14 seconds, it's a very silly idea. King Kong in the original movie was about 30 feet tall, and Godzilla is hundreds of feet tall and is knocking down skyscrapers. They had to make King Kong about 7 or 8 times bigger than usual, and give him superpowers that he had never canonically had before, like the ability to channel electricity and something to do with magnetism. They gave him magnetic powers.
They fixed the scaling in the legendary American franchise.
Yes, they did.
They made him as big as he needed to be.
Yes, they did. And they started that with Skull Islands, where he was already canonically big enough. They also fixed the problem with King Kong vs. Godzilla, which was that in the original movie, in order to appeal to Western viewers, they let King Kong win, which is dumb. And they fixed that with Godzilla vs. Kong, and pretty definitively had Godzilla win in the end. And they made them allies, which is a really cool dynamic that I think the Legendary Verse is doing a super cool thing with that. Not everything the Legendary Verse is doing, I think, is on the same level Toho, but that is super cool. But you got King Kong. We already know his story. He's from Skull Island. Everybody knows the King Kong story, and then they just kind of ported him into the Kaiju verse so that they could have a East versus West story. Then you've got Mothra. Mothra is from Infant Island, and Mothra is usually an ally to Godzilla, but she has been opposed to before in her first movie, Mothra vs. Godzilla. It's her versus and the thing with Mothra is she's actually like a deity. Ghidorah is also often treated as a deity, but I think it's mostly because he's so powerful that he's feared the way a deity would be feared. Mothra is actually kind of like a deity and sort of like the god of goodness. She's easily the most benevolent creature in the Kaiju verse. And so the reason why she's usually Godzilla's ally is because in most of the Toho Godzilla movies, Godzilla is fighting against other monsters, and so he's kind of filling the role of a big guy, but when he is not fulfilling the role of the big guy, Mothra will generally oppose him. But even when she does, Mothra recognizes that he is an agent for the Earth, and so her desire is never to kill Godzilla. Her desire is only ever to stop him from wreaking havoc on the world. Which is why in which one was it? Tokyo SOS, I think. When they steal Godzilla's bones, and she basically shows up and says, "If you don't give his bones back to the ocean, we are going to I am going to wage war on the Earth." And it's because humans were doing a bad thing that was going to threaten the Earth. But generally, she's his ally because she is just fully, unequivocally a force for good. And she's always got her fairies that sort of. She's also the one who does the most communication with humans because she has the fairies who can actually just straight up talk to people, and she has specific ways that her followers and her devotees can reach out to her, like all that stuff. So that's Mothra. I get a little mixed up on which movie was next after this because Toho was just spewing them out from the late 50s up through the mid 70s. I think the next one was Abira, Horror of the Deep, which is a villain and is also just straight up a lobster. Straight up, he's just a lobster suit that his whole thing is he's a lobster. But his movie is super, super fun. Some of the battles between him and Godzilla, literally the bigger, Abira is a threat to the humans who are on this who are at this base. And literally, the fight between the humans and Abira just wrecking shit wakes up Godzilla, and being pissed off when he wakes up, Godzilla just starts a fight with Abira. It's great, but he comes from the ocean. He's a straight up crustacean. But he's also part of a really, really fun movie. You should definitely check out. Then you've got Godzilla vs. Megalon, which is probably not the next movie, but I'm forgetting the chronology there, so I'm just going to go. Godzilla vs. Megalon is you've got this kaiju from Monster Island, a beetle that puts his hands together and they become a drill. I always enjoy when they sort of represent him more cybernetically, but I think he's not cybernetic at all initially. And he's not a super interesting villain compared to some of the others. he pretty much only has like the one movie, Godzilla vs. Megalon, and to me, because Gigan shows up there and Jet Jaguar and Gigan are much more like hogging the spotlight. Jet Jaguar is a very interesting character there. That's one that's definitely an ally to Godzilla because he is made by humans. He's just a straight up robot who can grow incredibly in size so that he can fight kaiju, and he only ever shows up in movies where Godzilla is against other monsters, and he shows up to help Godzilla. Except in the comics, there's some other stuff they do with him. Same basic premise, but like the comic that I'm reading right now with the Kaisei series, where Godzilla is back to being like against the humans fully and stuff. Jet Jaguar is part of the G-force that's kind of fighting against him. Then you've got after that, you got Hedorah, the smog monster. His movie is super underrated because it's fucking weird. it's so fucking
animated sequences, right?
yeah, and like it's the most like LSD trip Godzilla movie ever. And it's
like Godzilla interspersed with like Yellow Submarine.
Yeah, and he's like Hedorah is from space. I think he's from Mars or in Space Hunter Nebula. But I blank on that one. But he is a space monster who basically arrives on planet Earth and takes advantage of our massive and problematic pollution to grow stronger and stronger and stronger until he's a really serious problem against Godzilla. Depending on how that movie had played out, he could have ended up being like Godzilla's greatest threat. He's awesome. And I always thought he was a really interesting character, especially the way he evolves and just fully changes his form. He's pretty much the Blob to the point where like it seems like they straight up stole footage from the movie The Blob. And then he's like this mass of basically garbage, and then he's like kind of humanoid. It's crazy. It's cool. Then you've got my favorite villain of any of the monsters, Gigan. Gigan is on paper like he is what you get in a kaiju if you give an 11-year-old boy meth and tell him to give you a monster. He is a cyborg chicken with a laser eye who flies at several times the speed of light. He travels from the In Space Hunter Nebula, an entirely different solar system, to Earth in a matter of hours. He has ice pick hands. I can't remember if I mentioned he has a laser eye. He has a full functional miter saw on his stomach. Later versions of him have like chainsaw hands instead of the ice picks, and like grappling hook chainsaw hands, and you can teleport and shit. Which it almost doesn't matter that he can teleport when you can fly several times the speed of light. But he's insane. He's so incredibly powerful. He's the first kaiju to ever make Godzilla bleed, and yet he's such a fucking coward. He is the polar opposite of Anguirus, in which Anguirus is super underpowered and will run any fade. He wants all of it, and Gigan has all of the powers and will run away like a little bitch the second he loses the advantage. He will only fight when he thinks he's guaranteed to win and when he has the upper hand. And as soon as he loses it, he runs away like a little pussy. And I just think as a kaiju idea, it's such an interesting thing to have an opportunist who is also like hundreds of feet tall and has all these powers. It would be like if Franklin Richards was a coward. But yeah, so that's him. You also have like some of the other like little dudes who pretty much all come from Monster Island. You got Kumanga, who's like a little spider guy. The other guys, their name starts with a K. They're like little mantis dudes that are from Son of Godzilla, and they're just little like, what if a praying mantis was big? Kamakura, thank you.
Thanks.
Yes, Kamakura is Son of Godzilla is my least favorite Godzilla film. I loved it when
Godzilla looks just so goofy.
He does look so goofy, and I'm fine with that. I loved the movie as a child, and will happily enjoy. I will happily recommend that film for any kid, and I will watch it right along with them. I don't dislike it. I just don't like it anywhere near as much as the ones that focus on Godzilla.
Yeah.
There's also like I similarly blank on the villain of that movie, the like blue like redheaded bully monster. It starts with a G, I think. But hold on, I'm gonna Son of Godzilla enemy. Who is this little shit? Gabara in All Monsters Attack. Gabara was he was a perfect villain for All Monsters Attack, and like for Manila. He's a perfect villain for that character, but like he's never going to be the one who's actually fighting Godzilla. Baragon would stomp his ass, and Baragon is a useless little puppy dog. I love Baragon. He's genuinely adorable, but he keeps getting into fights against real kaiju, against whom he stands truly no chance. And then you've got, of course, Gorosaurus, who we mostly know from Just Destroy All Monsters, where he shows up for like 30 seconds and drop kicks Ghidorah in the spine, and it's hilarious. He is just the basic idea of Gorosaurus is, what if there was a copyright, like there was a concern about like copyright infringement on actual T-Rexes, and so we make a legally distinct T-Rex. Is pretty much what Gorosaurus is, but he jumps and drop kicks Ghidorah in the back, so we all love him. And then of course in I'm blanking on which film it's in. I want to say King Kong vs. Godzilla, but there's the giant condor that everybody loves because he's in there for literally like 4 seconds, and like he exists purely to have a creature get immediately killed by Godzilla. And he's and he made me realize I almost completely forgot about another of Godzilla's very few allies, which is Rodan. Rodan started out outside of the Godzilla Kaijuverse, and he was brought in, and Rodan, he's just a pteranodon, but he's another one that was like worshipped by like the Mayans as sort of deity, and I think it's a legendary verse thing that he's worshipped by the Mayans. I think before that he actually did come from like Mount Fuji, like he actually came from Japan. But
I'm going to drop a picture of the sculptor Rodan.
Oh yes, of course. Yeah, Rodan, he is one of Godzilla's other very early enemies turned to friends, and usually whenever Godzilla has allies, it's gonna be Anguirus, it's gonna be Mothra, it's gonna be Rodan. And Rodan, despite pretty much just being a pteranodon, he does fly at supersonic speeds, and the power of like like his speed mixed with his wingspan and everything, he can create shockwaves, and he has blown Godzilla straight off of his feet. Like he's very, very powerful in that sense. But at the end of the day, he's pretty much a pteranodon.
Hey, guess what?
Yes.
We're at 46 minutes.
I haven't even gotten to the Heisei series. So I think we only have 3 more kaiju from the Showa series, which is my area of expertise. When I was a child, we had family friends who had all the Showa series on VHS, and I would watch at least one Godzilla movie every single day when I was a kid. But it was all the Showa series, so it was all from 1954 to 1970. Terror of Mechagodzilla is either 76 or 78. I want to say it's 76. But yeah, you've got the last of like the really minor ones is Manda, which is basically like a Chinese dragon style serpent that I think early on he only really shows up in like Destroy All Monsters. So he's one of a number of enemies that really just show up sort of pad out Monster Island. Then we have Mechagodzilla. Mechagodzilla was initially actually created by the Zillions, and he was meant to be used to take over the Earth because the Zillions, most of the time, that's their goal in life, is to take over the Earth. Them and the Simians from M Space Hunter Nebula. Which, by the way, I don't think I mentioned, that's where Gigan is from, M Space Hunter Nebula. But Mechagodzilla is also from Planet X. He's from the Zillions. And he is a robot Godzilla that has missiles and laser eyes and all these different insane, like, he has this thing that he does in the first movie where he like creates a magnetic barrier for himself that even the atomic blast can't get through. And he does all these insane stuff. He starts out by literally looking like Godzilla, and Godzilla has to get help from King Caesar, his I think his last like ally from the Showa series, who literally is just like a big cocker spaniel pro wrestler, who literally just does like WWE moves against Mechagodzilla, and he's like trapped in this mountain where I'm pretty sure he fully exists just to protect this one family. Like he's fully like he is the guardian spirit of this one family, and so they have to awaken Caesar to help against Mechagodzilla. After that, we start moving into Terror Mechagodzilla. There's also Titanosaurus, who that is the time where Godzilla 1v2s Mechagodzilla and Titanosaurus, who's like a dinosaur with Shrek ears. He's actually cooler than that sounds, and he's got some like mer type, like fin type stuff that makes him seem like he'd be an aquatic creature. But you don't really see him being an aquatic creature so much. But he's pretty much just he doesn't really have any expressed personality outside of that, except that he is kind of a cruel fighter. Like he does a lot of like kicking Godzilla while he's down. He gets Godzilla buried under a bunch of shit, and then he just spends like 5 minutes just leaping and like stomping on Godzilla. So he tends to be a pretty cruel fighter, but he's not strong, and he is strong. But this is Godzilla at the height of his power in Showa series. Then we start getting into like some of the darker enemies with Heisei, because Heisei is generally a darker era of Godzilla. You start getting into more fucked up storylines. Biollante is or Biollante, I say Biollante, but that is one of the darker and more beautiful Godzilla stories. It is this massive plant creature that actually was spawned from a girl. This girl died, and her DNA was mixed with Godzilla's DNA, was mixed with a rose to create this horrific space, or like this horrific plant monster that it is commonly argued as one of Godzilla's most threatening enemies. But and she is extremely powerful. But the purpose of that movie is much more to create like an emotional center to it, and so it focuses much less on how powerful Biollante is. And at the end of the day, she is vanquished at the end of the film, and Godzilla just straight up overpowers her. But it is a beautiful story there. Just tragic story about this girl basically turned into a kaiju. And then you got spores from Biollante, which had Godzilla's DNA in it, ended up getting sent out into space when she died. Those spores eventually made it to, I blank on this, it's either in Space Hunter Nebula or Planet X, but I think it's in Space Hunter Nebula, and that is where Space Godzilla is made. His name is straight up Space Godzilla, but he is a problem. He is a serious threat. His movie is cool as shit. He looks like a hulked out alien Godzilla with crystals all over him, and he's crazy powerful and super cool, and just unfortunately has a dumbass name. But that movie is super, super good. Space Godzilla, super strong enemy. Then you get into Mecha King Ghidorah, which is super, super cool. Ghidorah gets fully killed, and at the end of Godzilla versus King Ghidorah, comes back as Mecha King Ghidorah. He's a cyborg King Ghidorah. He's so fucking cool. But that is pretty much his entire story. Then you have Destroya, who was this Precambrian monster that sort of emerged and sort of got mutated by Oxygen Destroyer technology. The Oxygen Destroyer, if you don't know, was the technology that was used in the original 1954 film to kill Godzilla the first time. The thing with Godzilla is he's kind of immortal. So he does get killed a few times throughout the series and then come back. The only time he dies permanently is Godzilla versus Destroya, when his body fully melts down from the compounding of nuclear energy, and eventually just fully dissolves. And everything that you have after that is the son of Godzilla. Although kind of also not, because that's the last one of the Heisei series, and so everything after that is the Millennium series, in which it's all just one-off sequels to the original movie, so it's still the original Godzilla. So it's meant to be that everything after that is the son of Godzilla, but then they kind of don't go that direction because it's just a different era after that. But Destroya, this Precambrian monster that sort of emerges and mutates with the Oxygen Destroyer technology, and so his bites inject Godzilla with this Oxygen Destroyer, which is what rapidly accelerates the degradation of his body and leads to his meltdown. Destroya is an extremely cool, extremely horrifying villain that I think you should definitely watch all the Heisei series movies up to that to get more of a picture of how cool it is. But yeah, Destroya is super cool. I think after that, the only new kaiju introduced outside the Legendary verse, the Titans, I consider them canon kaiju when they are made by Toho. And so the Legendary was like fucking Shimu. But Shimu was a terrible design. I didn't like Shimu from Godzilla vs. Kong New Empire. I think Shimu should have been way more threatening than she was. And they pretty much kind of just made her adorable. all like soft looking and white. It's kind of like in How to Train Your Dragon when they tell you Toothless is like the strongest, most dangerous dragon, and he's just like a little guy. That's kind of how Shimu felt to me. But the last one of Toho's new monsters getting introduced, unless you want to count Kiryu, which Kiryu is just Millennium version of Mechagodzilla, not a different monster, except that it is generally controlled by humans. It is not controlled by Bazillions, but it's the same basic thing. What they did was they took Mechagodzilla and just repurposed it with human technology, so it is fully just Mechagodzilla. But the last one that actually shows up is Orga in Godzilla 2000, which is a spaceship that had also kind of mixed with Godzilla's DNA when Biollante spores got sent up into space, and it's a half spaceship, half kaiju, and it's kind of powerful. It changes shapes, and sometimes it's fully just a spaceship, and other times it's fully a monster. And it tries to swallow Godzilla at one point. But other than that, like, I'm not super like the Millennium series is my least favorite of the eras of Godzilla, and so I'm not as passionate about those monsters and those representations as I am about the previous ones. Although Final Wars is fucking rad. So that is, I think, all of the kaiju where it came from.
And we are 3 minutes shy of an hour. Forgive me if I speed some of this in edit. Hey, we asked for it.
Yes, we did. And some people will see that this video is an hour long, and they'll be like, I don't know if I need to really watch that. Like, and you'll probably know as soon as you see that it's an hour long that you don't really need to watch it. But other people who are curious about my actual thoughts on Godzilla might be glad they have me just ranting about, like, I haven't even gotten to like talking about like what Godzilla, like why I had my passion for Godzilla. Although I did kind of mention like I used to watch one of these movies, like at least one of these movies, pretty much every single day when I was a kid. But yeah, so
We did it. We did a thing.
We did it. And again, thanks so much to everybody who forced me to talk about Godzilla.
It's true. We forced you.
Yep.
We got 24 days left on this thing, so yeah, let's see how much further we can push it.
Yeah, we have all these. We still have a bunch of extra tiers and extra stuff that we're trying to reach these stretch goals, so we can give you some more badass stuff.
Oh yeah.
And Will is hard at work making the art happen, and yeah, we cannot wait to have issue 4 in your hands.
Yeah, it's gonna be good stuff. All right.
Hell yeah.
I'm gonna end with the Godzilla noise.
Hell yes.
Okay, bye.